Hello and welcome to this Tales from the Hut and Hangar episode about the Cunliffe-Owen Concordia. Now this is a very rare airliner in many ways. There's not a great deal of images about, or stuff in general. As for any films of the aircraft, absolutely zilch. So I first found out about the aircraft when surfing the net back in the early days of dial-up, which you remember fondly, an image loading about a minute for one image. At that time, like many people, I had aviation books and mags, but I had no idea about its existence until then. In fact, I liked it so much I even started a Concordia Facebook group back in 2017. And for your info, the link is in the description of this video and some other Concordia stuff that I mentioned on the way. So this little known airliner really deserves some more stuff being put up on the internet about it. Aviation history needs to be remembered for the people who worked hard to help develop into what it is today. So the cover image I've used here, I tweaked a little bit, and it's from a brochure at the Paris Air Show in 1946, where they displayed a mock-up. On the subject of images, it's really hard giving credit for them. If not shown, the majority are Cunliffe-Owens or Flight, Aeroplane, publications like that of the day, but I will give credits when it's known. So I hope you enjoy the story. So now for a bit of background. Cunliffe-Owen Aircraft was a British aircraft manufacturer from 1937 to 1947. The founder, Hugo, was a wealthy man and one of the original directors of the fag company British and American Tobacco. He was into aviation, so in 1937 he formed Cunliffe-Owen Aircraft, and they were briefly called at the start BOA Limited. The plan was to manufacture at Eastleigh, which is now Southampton, the American Brunelli OA-1, Flying Wing as it was also known, under licence. This is going to be a 20-seat airliner, far more advanced than any existing aircraft around at the time, but we'll have more of that shortly. So the company's core work around World War II was repairs, overhauls and construction for other firms, and as you can see here with this company ad, it was a lot of aircraft. The American list includes Deep Breath, Lockheed Electras / Hudsons, Curtiss Hawks, Warhawk, Tomahawk, Kitty Hawk, Bostons, Havocs, B-26s, P-39s and Lockheed Lightnings. And also, if you look in the top left hand corner, you can see a Condor, which is obviously captured from the Germans, and that the RF used it for transport duties, so they must have obviously done some work on that. I don't know more about that, but that's quite an interesting thing aside. So going on to the British list, the most amazing thing was Spitfires, well, Seafires really. They built the Royal Navy's Seafires, and the total was 500, which is quite incredible. The other British aircraft were Blenheims, Hamptons and Halifaxes. They had so much work, in fact, they expanded to Marwell Hall, which is just north of Eastleigh Airfield. So they were a very busy company during the war, and a major contribution was made.
A revolutionary new type of plane, built without a fuselage or body, is on public show for the first time outside the factory at Southampton. The new design is being sponsored by Sir Hugo Cunliffe-Owen, millionaire racehorse owner and tobacco chairman. Passengers in the new plane will be carried in a cabin in the wings, and the absence of body makes for less weight and therefore a greater payload for each trip. The new machine isn't ready to take to the air yet, but it taxis round the airport and it looks rock steady.
Right, I hope you enjoyed that little film. As we had none of the Concordia, then I thought I'd share you one of the OA-1. The one on screen was the Cunliffe-Owen OA-1. Well, in fact, it was a Brunelli OA-1, and all the bits were brought in from America so they could assemble it. The plan was to build it as a 15 to 20 seat airliner powered by two Bristol Perseus radial engines. This aircraft, Golf Alpha Foxtrot Mike Bravo, was assembled from American parts as mentioned in December 1938. They called it the Clyde Clipper and test flew it on the 12th of January 1939. However, the aviation authorities at the time were concerned that the aircraft was deficient in many ways and potentially dangerous. Design-wise, if the pilots had to bail out, they'd no doubt would have hit the tail booms. That's not good. The pilot and crew's visibility was basically crap, forward view only. The instrument panel was poorly laid out. Also, there was no trim or flap indicators, and the two-wheeled retractable undercarriage controls were individually placed either side of the cockpit, so that wasn't laid out very well. The airframe had been poorly, if not dangerously constructed. So basically it was a turkey, but the story goes on. She was surprisingly put into service in May 1941. She didn't actually see RAF service as much, but was given to the Free French Air Force, well, it was a freebie, in North Africa. Despite being damaged in an accident, she actually survived the war, which is quite incredible, and ended her days as part of a bonfire celebrating the VJ Day in Egypt. So that was a sorry end to that beast. So yeah, it could have been something good, but it didn't work out for him. Right, let's get on with the Concordia story. So here we have a nice colour photo for starters of the first prototype with its B-class test registration Y0222. These B-class regs were allocated to some manufacturers over a certain period of time. Quite rare, but unusual not to see the G-dash. Now I think it is a nice looking aircraft, and it was designed by Cunliffe-Owen's chief designer W. Garrow Fisher. Also note the bulge on the top near the fin. It is a parachute for spinning trials. So this photo from a session on the 19th of May 1947 was soon after its first flight on the very same day, and piloted by Aubrey Corbin. Right, I'm just going to read an article from Key.Aero about the Concordia. The Concordia development work began late 1945 and the self-funded by Cunliffe-Owen. This was the company's first indigenous design to enter production. So confident were the directors in the new aircraft that jigs and tooling were set up in full production before the prototype had even been completed. The all-metal wing monoplane featured a cantilever main plane and tail planes and modern retractable tricycle undercarriage. The main gear rotating forwards into the engine nacelles and the nose gear rearwards, usually turning 90 degrees, so the nose wheel lay horizontal when retracted. The monocoque fuselage was constructed of a light alloy sheeting, lapped to create a smooth exterior finish, strengthened by transverse frames, bulkhead stringers that ran the length of the fuselage, except where interrupted by the windows or cabin door. Its tapered wing had 6.5 of dihedral. By largely of homegrown effort, the Concordia's undercarriage legs were built by Lockheed. The wheels and tyres come from Goodyear. The aircraft had been designed for ease of access for inspection and maintenance, with hand holes and inspection holes built into the skin. This article you can see in the description. It's very good actually. So yeah, look at the description and there's a link to it. Right, so starting with the cabin. This drawing shows here the standard 10-seat layout with the toilet at the back and stowage box opposite the passenger door. Quite a generous space for aircraft of that time, and looks very modern. Yeah, so it could be adapted to have 14 seats in a high density layout for military work and commuter stuff. There's loads of things planned for it, but this is the basic layout of the Concordia. Right, we have a very nice photograph of the interior, and it looked very modern for its time. At one point rear facing seats and cabin hat racks were mentioned, but never sure if any of this was ever put into practice on the two aircraft that were built. These seats were the company's own design and were made from fire resistant materials, so that was very advanced thinking for the time. They do look very comfortable and very plush in fact. You also had the step over the main spar in the cabin, as with other types through the years. That reminds me of fond memories of tripping and going arse over tit when working on a Jetstream 31, carrying an urn of hot water. Let's just say it was very messy. Right, so another photograph of the cabin and a drawing of different configurations you can have at the back end. The following bit I'm going to read now is from Flight Magazine, March the 14th, 1946. The capacious fuselage offers a generous amount of 50 cubic feet, 10 individual seats, 5 each side, and for the greater part of the cabin length, 6 feet of headroom is available. Windows are of a relatively large area, conveniently pitched in relation to the seat stations, although it should be pointed out that if an operator requires 12 seats rather than the normal 10, as may well be likely, then the window pitching is not so convenient. At the rear of the cabin to the starboard and opposite the main entry door is a separate compartment for the stowage of passengers' baggage, and after this, for the full fuselage width, is a toilet room furnished with a chemical closet, lavatory basin and a mirror. Wow. Light personal baggage can be carried in racks extending the length of the cabin above the seats. An additional feature may well be embodied is the provision of unit freight bins, each of about 12 cubic foot in capacity, which could be installed in place of seats if, say, only 8 passengers but an extra load of freight were carried on a given journey. This transport condition, which may often arise in comparatively undeveloped countries, and provision against such contingency is an excellent feature. Well done, Concordia. But there's no hat racks in the photograph, so this is obviously done before they finalised it. Anyway, that all sounds very normal now and very modern, and Generous back in the mid-40s. Right, so in this picture you can see the executive layout. They were forward thinking, as in trying all kinds of markets for sales, including a freighter version, medical and a 14-seat military version. As for putting a cargo door in, I'm not sure, not seen any drawings or details about that, but no doubt they were had that in mind, or may have continued with the door they've got. And now we have a lovely cutaway drawing. The detail is amazing, as in a lot of these drawings of the draftsmen and designers. I can look at them for ages anyway. YouTube videos are not the best viewing platform for detailed drawings like this, so for more aircraft technical info and images, please look in the description of this episode for links to flight, aeroplane magazines, articles and PDFs. I've set up a special link for it, so you can look at them at your leisure. Facts and figures. So you can see here the performance was okay and had a good short field performance. It used 3-bladed de Havilland or Rotor 9-foot diameter propellers, and they were fully feather in, constant speed and reversible. As for pilot notes about the aircraft, hardly anything at all. All I've got is docile handling and performs well. Also mentioned was its single engine performance was very marginal. So back then most were very iffy on one engine. Engines could let the aircraft down, literally. So it was very underpowered. And here we have a nice shot of 222. You can see a passenger looking out one of the large cabin windows. £22,000 was the cost of a shiny new Concordia, which was a competitive price at the time, for a new aircraft anyway. But ultimately the second-hand aircraft from the war was still big, and the market for the Concordia at that point was just not there, which is a bit sad. I think it came before its time. So on to the manufacturing. You can see in this photograph here a wooden mock-up in January 1946. It was an amazing amount of work that just goes into this before they start the real thing. I guess it sadly ended up as firewood, but a real shame that none of this stuff survives for a lot of these aircraft after all this work. So here's another photograph of the manufacturing hall. This is the mock-up and the first 2 prototypes in the hangar at Eastleigh. So onto this photograph, you can see a fuselage and wing being assembled in quite a large hall, which they obviously needed for the wartime work they did. Okay, so another couple of photographs here, and one is of the fuselage shot from the inside, and also the Leonardo's engines were designed by Alvis to be interchangeable for simplicity. It was claimed that a complete engine change is possible in no more than 40 minutes. Now that's impressive. So on to the flying. So the big day was here, the 19th of May 1947, and here's a couple of grainy but really nice photographs of 222 taxiing out before its first flight. Note all the staff proudly watching, and not a high vis in sight. Very exciting times for all, but sadly by the end of the year all will be over. And here's another group photograph, which I think is all the big cheeses of the company. You can see Mr. Aubrey Corbin, the chief test pilot, with his head stuck out the window. So very proud staff, and exciting times for them. And here we have 222 being a cover girl for a French aviation magazine. They did a sales tour of Europe with Concordia, not sure where they went. Hopefully some details one day. photos or even some film would turn up, I can live in hope. So here's a nice photograph of 222 outside before its markings were applied. Please stick with this. There's some more really good photographs coming up. This is because I've decided to publish all the Concordia photographs I have up to this point, so we can sort of do a closure and hopefully some more will materialise. And I hope it's not too much death by PowerPoint at this moment in time, but as I said, please stick with it. So we have a really nice and interesting photograph of 22 getting checked over at Eastleigh on the 2nd of May 1947. Obviously note the Lancasters in the background with the white paint. I thought that was Coastal Command. Did they use them? I don't know, maybe someone could tell me. I do wonder what the story is about them. Maybe having some maintenance or just being stored. This photograph also is a great angle shot off the pilot's visibility and that very, very long, elegant nose wheel. So in this photograph we have possibly the sales team trying to flog the aircraft, or maybe after the first flight, not sure of the location. Lots of light aircraft in the background, but it is probably Eastleigh. Now this is probably one of the best shots of a Concordia, one of 222 again, during its first massive photo shoot, where a lot of the photographs are shown in this episode. It does look very Vikings-ish in this photograph, but I really think the Casa C202 Halcon was a lot more like it, and you may say, a what? So here's a photograph of the Halcon, which is another rare aircraft. Okay, so we have 4 photographs here of 222. They're not the best quality, so there's no point making them larger. One, however, was a nice colour one, and this is a commonly seen and well published photograph from the first flight photo session. Right, so here's a selection of, I think, newspaper clippings. The top left is taken from an RAF aircraft. I'm not sure what type. I'll figure it out one day when I could be bothered to go through the wings on the internet. Makes you wonder if the RAF ever considered about the Concordia. Be interested to know. They probably looked at it. Note the picture below with very large flaps, so that gave it a really good runway performance. And also a nice shot on the right hand side. And here's a lovely shot of 222, probably taken on that first day it flew. In this picture it looks pretty chunky, but it still looked right anyway in my opinion. And now it's time for a commercial break. I had to post a few of these beautiful ads that were common back then. A lot of work went into them, and I think they really are works of art. And some more ads here. If you do Google the Concordia, you normally come up with loads of adverts, so I've selected the best ones. As I said, they're real pieces of art. Also in the description of this episode is a link to some old aviation manufacturers' adverts, which is a really good read, and I recommend having a look. Right, now we move on to the second aircraft, and photos of it even rarer than 222. And this one in particular is one of my favourites of the Concordia. So 4 months after the type's maiden flight, a second Concordia, Golf Alpha Kilo Bravo Echo, construction number 02, was displayed at the Society of British Aircraft Constructors, SBAC Air Show, held at Radlett Aerodrome between September the 9th and 12th, 1947. You can just see another locally produced aircraft behind, a Portsmouth Aerocar. And here is Golf Alpha Kilo Bravo Echo again, alongside a very nice set of corporate steps. Very posh. Right, now onto the final photo of Bravo Echo. An interesting fact here, the second prototype differed from the first in having its cockpit lengthened by 8 inches. The reason why was to move the pilot seats forward of propellers, helping to reduce the noise from the blade tips. So that's pretty handy. And then nicely on October the 15th, 1947, the type gained its certificate of airworthiness. Hooray! Cunliffe-Owen reserved registrations for the first 6 production aircraft, that's Alpha Kilo Bravo Fox to Bravo Kilo, and aimed for a production rate of 12 aircraft a month. So, you know, quite ambitious, but they had plans. And then suddenly that was the end. Work was suspended on November 1947 on the 6th production aircraft, and the orders had lined up at the time was a VIP Spec 1 for Nawab of Bhopal. I think that's how you say it. But some reports that Bravo Echo was to be registered as Victor Tango Charlie Quebec Tango for this order. And now, interestingly, 2 for British European Airways, who didn't really need it, as plenty of aircraft could do the job in their fleet. And why bother getting another type in? It's a bit sketchy, that one, but they did look at it. BOAC did sniff at it and made some suggestions. And also the weird one, you could not get a spare engine through the cabin door. And then another curious one was Air Malta placed an order for one example in 1947. So they had sort of orders in, reluctantly. Looks like 2 of them were definite and the rest were in and ahhing or forced by the government rules at the time. But it wasn't great progress really. So in the end, with financial issues, no real sales and a difficult market, it was decided to end the project, so the Concordia was dead. However, an aircraft of similar size or slightly smaller, which was British, came onto the market around the same time, and that was the de Havilland Dove Devon, /Devon I should say, the military version, and they built 544, and that evolved into the Heron with great success. Now as for Cunliffe-Owen, money was short and a loan fell through. Shortly after they wound up the Concordia, the company decided to dissolve itself after a board meeting on November the 18th, 1947. The 2 Concordias were scrapped just 6 months after flying, which is incredible really, the short lives they had. Both were scrapped by May 1948. The details are a bit sketchy, but as far as I know, nothing remains. So the Concordia really came when the timing was not right. It was not a bad aircraft, it was ahead of its time in some ways. Cunliffe-Owen in general made a great contribution to British aviation. And that finishes this episode on the Concordia. So thanks very much for watching and listening. Please leave a comment and subscribe because I'm going to do some more on this series. And until next time, thank you.